Welcome to the CapLander podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world of private capital markets. Whether you're new to private market investing or a seasoned professional, this podcast unpacks the latest trends, insights, and opportunities shaping the industry. Featuring expert guests and deep discussions, CapLander is your go-to resource for staying informed and inspired. Hi, Jody.
Hi, Morgan. So it is now February 2nd, and the reality of the beginning of the year and the sticker shock of January is over, and we are in it.
Yep. I was reading this morning that M&A activity is up. That M&A activity, what did it say? It was in PitchBook that M&A cracks 2021 record.
Yeah, we can see it by how busy we are with clients and people are. I spoke to a venture capitalist over the weekend, and she said she's literally been working every single weekend. And I know that they were in Davos, and I asked what the purpose of Davos was in the venture space. And she said that they are talking to LPs, they are talking to candidates, they are having CEOs talk to people about deals, just the full gamut.
Yeah, I think the big word of 2026 is deals and doing whatever you need to do to get deals done, which is actually cues us up nicely for our guest today. So we are going to be joined by Alessandro Chesser, who is the founder and CEO of GetDynasty. And GetDynasty is all focused on stacking QSBS. Jody, do you want to tell us at all how you've seen this with clients and what that means for the layman?
Yeah, I think it's a really great. I really enjoyed. We met Al when we were in San Francisco in the beginning of the year, and QSBS stands for Qualified Small Business Stock, and it is a tool that is unfortunately many founders learn about this when it's too late, and so I think Al's going to really bring us up to date on what this is. He's got a tech company, and their platform is all about the wealth creation and understanding QSBS.
Absolutely. Get Dynasty's whole mission is that they help founders pay zero taxes. That's really the whole purpose of it. And so we're going to jump in with him and let us know what you think. Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Great. Well, Al, I really, as you know, we all sort of cover the private capital markets, but your business has a very Get Dynasty, has a very interesting angle on it. And I can only share with you that from many years of doing in-person events, both with someone from a private bank and then also usually a lawyer for private companies, CEOs and executives, as well as, multiple webinars and Zooms, it always comes up about wealth management, planning strategies, and trusts and estate, and also the QSBS. So, without further ado, why don't you fill us in on what Get Dynasty is and how you arrived at this idea?
Yeah, so we are a licensed Nevada trust company, and we are a full stack trust company. So what that means is we create trusts, we serve as trustee, we file tax returns, we do gift valuations, we do it all. Full stack, one-stop shop. Right now, we are very specific in the target customer that we work with. We only work with startup founders, soon to be general partners at venture firms as well. That will be our next segue into the space. But for now, we're just supporting startup founders. And we help, basically what we do is we help startup founders reduce taxes using trusts.
How did you come up with the idea for this? I obviously stalked you online, but you were a banker to begin with, and then looked like you got into tech in one way, shape, or form. I think it's ex Carta. But how did you have the idea for QSBS?
Yeah, so I ended up at Carta as the very first sales hire in 2014. I ended up getting promoted to VP of sales, and I basically, hired the first couple hundred employees on the sales side and, stayed with the company from 0 to 300 million in revenue. And so I saw a lot of cap tables, all the customers that we were signing on. And in the beginning, we were all doing onboarding. We were, even though I was selling, I was selling the customer, then I was putting them on the product. I was onboarding them onto the product. We were all doing everything. And I saw a lot of cap tables, and we noticed that certain founders would have their shares split into many different trusts. Sometimes it would be like 10 plus trusts. And it was just kind of a weird thing. When I saw it at first, I was like, they're just being really generous. They're giving their shares out to all these different family members and friends. I mean, just thought they had too much money and they were just spreading it around. But it wasn't until later where I saw, I think it was a Wall Street Journal article talking about the CEO of Roblox, and it talked about how he created 12 trusts for Roblox, took it public, and those trusts ended up with $120 million in tax-free capital gains.
Right.
And
Which
so
is
when I saw that, I was like,
that's serious.
aha moment,
Right.
serious money. I mean, where else can you get $120 million in capital gains and pay zero taxes? Like, where else can you do that? And so when I saw that, it was the aha moment. I was like, that's why they're doing it. They're creating trusts, and each trust is getting a separate QSBS exemption. QSBS, for those that don't know what it is, qualified small business stock, is the greatest tax exemption that exists, specifically for startup shareholders, which allows them to sell anywhere from $10 to $15 million in capital gains and pay zero taxes.
Yeah, it's crazy that people find out about QSBS sometimes when it's too late, but it really is, as I said, has always come up on all of our in all of our discussions because it's really important. But so you had this idea, when you saw that there was a need in the market, which is a great way from, that's always the impetus. But then you turned this into a whole business. So as you've done this, obviously focusing on founders, what's a common thing a theme and thing you see with founders where they miss this, like, they're so focused on their business or what
Oh,
is.
we get it all the time. We get it all the time. I talk to founders and they're like, this is great, Al, but I just don't have time for this right now. I'm not worried about taxes. I just care about building a really good business. And then they end up getting an LOI to be acquired, and they're like, I need to do this immediately. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you don't
You're
really
like, you
have
should
enough
have.
time to get this done.
Yeah.
And then they end up paying maximum taxes.
We see it on the compensation side because we track compensation for first time, second time, third time CEOs or more. And you really do see the difference, especially on the equity side, what they learned the first time from using that excuse of, oh, I don't have time or I don't have the bandwidth. It's like, it's in the same way that their focus on building the company is so important. You do have to make sure that you set the time aside to take care of these housekeeping items because the reality is, there is, and you mentioned this with the 120 millions and 12 trusts. I mean, starting a company is obviously you're doing it because you believe in it, but there is the real opportunity for wealth creation. And not every startup is going to be that company. But if you are one of those companies who does make it to that other side, why not take full advantage of the wealth creation that comes with it?
Well, I think most first-time CEOs are very reluctant to put themselves first because they feel like somehow that is either disrespectful or greedy or selfish to be looking at their own wealth creation and planning for this. And even as Morgan's saying, to her point, even getting their own equity right. Like we're working on a project right now, and everyone equity and cash equity mix is right except for the CEO. And we're like, you're gonna have to do this because it's actually going to be at a point where it's going to be a negative, and you're shaking your head. So jump in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like, people don't care about it until it becomes a problem. And, we're trying to help educate the market and like by telling stories. And like, I have so many stories. I have like, when we were at Carta in the very beginning, none of us knew about QSBS, which is crazy for a cap table company, but we were small. We were like 15, 20 employees. And one of the individuals, one of our like brand new hires, like a recent college graduate, I think he had like one job before, he was working in PwC on the tax team. And he brought up QSBS. We were all in a big conference room, and our CEO, Henry, and our general counsel, Mike, like they never heard of Q. They're like, no, that sounds too good to be true. And they actually advised us not to exercise our shares because they were like, listen, it's risky. Like, don't worry about that. Like just save your money for now. The company's risky. Don't exercise. And I didn't listen. And I was like, no, I think Ray knows what he's talking about. He's a PwC former tax auditor. I'm like, he knows, like, I believe him. And so I exercised. But on the other flip side, there was a lot of people that didn't exercise. And then we ended up blowing through the QSBS eligibility. We raised a bunch of money. And one of those individuals, like, they were like, that's the biggest mistake I made, like not exercising, not thinking about this. And at the time, he was like, Al, I'm not worried about taxes. I'm happy to pay taxes. If I make money, I'm happy to pay taxes. Like, didn't exercise. Now it's the worst. Now he tells the story of like the worst mistake he made was not
Well,
exercise.
you gave me an in here, so I'm going to take it because you keep talking about Carta. So I really have to just take this as an opportunity to distinguish Thelander from Carta, because Carta, as you know, and you were there, does the whole cap table management. And of course, they've moved a little bit into the compensation lane as well because they plug into payroll. And I think it's a really good time to distinguish why Thelander is different, because we do not plug into payroll. We run an actual survey and we cover both sides of the house it will make perfect sense to you because you're even moving into this area of both the private companies as well as the investment firm compensation. And I would say 80% of the data that needs to be looked at to really understand on balance what somebody's compensation looks like and what the company looks like or what the firm looks like cannot be gotten through payroll. Things like option pool and how the other components all, the single trigger, double trigger, and how all of these, the acceleration and all these other components are really important. And in addition to that, places like the UK and Europe, you cannot plug into payroll. And then further on the investment firm side, things like carried interest, the capital contribution for carried interest, all these other things cannot be gotten from payroll. So I couldn't help myself there.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know, how much they're investing into that business. Absolutely, I don't think it's a priority for credit. I don't think they're really focused very much on it. But I do know that the survey businesses are incredibly valuable, and we've definitely used them many different times in my career. But yeah, the QSPS thing, like nobody knows about it. Nobody knew about it. Now more and more people are starting to know about it, but still, like for employees and executives that aren't exercising and because of that, they're not able to take advantage of it. Like we all fight so hard for how much equity we have in these companies. Even as a founder, you're negotiating with your investors, how much equity you have. You're negotiating with your co-founders. And to not take advantage of like potential massive tax savings that effectively give you like the equivalent to having more ownership than you currently have. Like we
Right.
fight for the ownership. Why not fight for the percentage of the ownership that we actually keep?
That leads me to my next two questions. One is we've had on this podcast have had other CEOs who were early employees at tech companies, at startups. And there was a moment for them along the way where that light bulb went off where they said, "Okay, I'm going to take everything I've learned from being at a really early stage company and I'm going to do this on my own." So, was that moment for you when you read that Wall Street Journal article, or did you all have an inkling before then that you were going to start your own company and move away from being an employee someplace else?
Yeah, so when I saw the Wall Street Journal article, that's when I realized what was happening. And that's when I learned about QSBS stacking. I'm like, this is an incredible idea. Everybody should be doing this. But it wasn't until later during my time at Carta where somebody on our strategy team actually put together a memo and said, like, we should turn this into a product. And when I read that, that was like, yes, this needs to exist. Carta should do it. Carta was never going to do it though. So
A
many
lot of different things
businesses.
going on, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
love that though, because this is like, we're partnered with PitchBook, especially on our investment firm offering. And this is what the original founder and CEO of PitchBook, John Gabbert, worked for Thomson Reuters. And he saw this, like he said, this needs to happen. And then he realized it's not going to happen here. So he left and started PitchBook. So everyone has that moment where you're like, I have the idea, I got it. And it's oftentimes from reading something, but then you realize in the organization you're in, it's not going to happen. So you've got to be, really entrepreneurial. But it sounds like you were entrepreneurial, but it's a bigger step, as Morgan was saying, like you took a big jump. So what's that been like for you personally, professionally? How do you sleep at night? How is all that going?
I mean, not very well. Most importantly, because I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my 2-year-old is not very good at sleeping. Startups and young kids, not a good combination. But it's been hard. Like we're almost 4 years in now. It took us like 3.5 years to basically find really strong traction, like 6 months ago, and now we're rocking and rolling. And so I think startups are a game of like, sometimes it's just like, how long can you survive? And if you keep working at it and testing different, products and different markets, and eventually you find one that sticks, and we found it. Like, this is it. It's working really, really well. We're going to expand it, and we're going to offer a product for general partners and limited partners and startup executives. And we're going to focus on this ecosystem because it's network driven. And so it's
Very,
been hard.
very network driven.
Yeah.
You're
And so it's
totally
good. It
correct.
feels like, I basically it feels like we're building the consumer version of Carta. That's what it feels like. We're selling to all the same people, and we're getting all the same data. We're getting the stock, but we're getting it in a roundabout way. We're not getting it from managing the cap table. We're getting it because the shareholders are giving it to us in their trusts, and we're becoming the
Right.
trustee. So it's
Right. You have
really,
to collect the data somehow. We have a colleague who's at BlackRock, and he says that data is the new oil. And how you get the data, we talked a little bit about Tesla. He's like, sure, Tesla makes cars, but Tesla at the end of the day is a data company, and how much information they collect. And it seems like that's really two questions on it. One is, why did you focus on startup founders? Because that was the clientele you knew and learned through Carta, and that's where your original network came from?
yeah, exactly. I mean, at first we were like, we're going to go after small business owners. We're going to go after trucking companies. It was very difficult to figure out how to sell to these people.
It is difficult, isn't it? 'Cause it's hard to get wait till you get to the investment firm side. That's even harder to sell to.
I mean, if it's all in the same network for us, like general partners, and it's the same value, similar value proposition, it's about taxes, reducing taxes, then for us, we know this world, and that's why we chose to focus on it. Because the second and we were just testing a bunch of different markets before, but when we started testing QSBS stacking, like, it started flying off the shelf right away. So we knew right away that this is where the oil is. Like, let's just keep drilling here.
What was your biggest learning lesson from growing Carta from 0 to 300 million? I think that was the number you said, in revenue. And first, I guess, especially for somebody who is a founder or a first time CEO listening to it, I think that's the scalability is always something that comes up, because you know that what you're doing and the core of what you're doing is there. So it's not really a matter of if somebody needs your services, it's a matter of when. And then the when part, I especially think in the wave of AI and how people are finding information is so different and algorithms are constantly changing underneath you. A, what would you tell somebody for how to find customers? And then B, how to sell to them?
We can start with that, like finding customers and selling to customers. Like, it's different now. It used to be that you could just send out 1,000 emails and people would actually respond to you. Like, nobody looks
Don't
at
tell
email.
us. We see this, it's crazy, right?
There's so many email campaigns. There's all this AI. Like, the problem is, like, all these AI tools are just flooding the internet with garbage, and like nobody's wanting to look at anything anymore. I think that email is no longer very effective. It still can be effective, but it's no longer very effective. It's very hard to get out of spam filters. It's very hard to get people to look at a cold email. Cold calls, depending on the market you're selling into. If you're selling into startup founders, they don't answer. I don't answer my phone. My phone rings all day. I don't look at it. I don't even look at my voicemails anymore.
Right.
Um,
You have a
Morgan,
2-year-old and a
remember, never leave out a voicemail.
no. I honestly, I would not. I cold called in the beginning when I started with Jay Thelander, and that ended really quickly because every single time you'd call, people were like, I don't have time. If you want to find time with me, you have to schedule something. Do not just call me. They'd be more upset.
The OG of the house. I used to call and people loved it. They were like, "Jody, it's so great to hear from you." And a cold call turned into, or like a call would turn into a whole conversation about how's your family and where are the kids and,
See,
that
that's different. You're cold calling into people that know you. That's not a cold. That's great. Like, we could do that all day.
One
I'm talking
call.
about calling into people that have never even heard of your
well, but
company or your name.
well, right. Well, when we even in the private company world, especially, we started more in life sciences. People, if they didn't know us specifically, they were like, "Wait, you're calling me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here answering my phone and going dialing for dollars." So, it's true. We've had more lower hanging fruit. It wasn't cold, but
And it's a different time also. Depending on the time that was done, like nowadays, I'm getting AI cold calls. I get so much stuff. So, like,
Ugh.
don't answer. Like, I don't and we've tried cold calling into founders, they don't answer.
No. Okay, so
Um,
email is out, cold calling is out. What's in?
so, what's worked really well for us is been so two different things. Number one, we've had a lot of success on short form videos, social media. Like we've had a lot of success on Instagram and TikTok historically. Just producing this is what the rich people do to reduce taxes. Here's how trust can protect your assets from divorce. Get these polarizing topics and so that broadly, like that works really well on Instagram and TikTok. And we have like our business account has like 100,000 followers on Instagram, I think. But that's more mass market focused. Once we started focusing in on startup founders, we moved to LinkedIn and just like me producing content
Content.
about trust and company building and how to build a sales team and whatever. And that's where almost all of our customers are coming from right now.
How big is your sales team?
One sales rep.
Yeah. Is that you or is that somebody else?
It was just me, and then now we have, as of a couple months ago, we have our first non-founder sales
Right.
rep.
What have you learned from your 2 and your 4-year-old that's helped incorporate your efficiency with business?
I mean, that's a good question. What have I learned for them that I've used for my business? I mean, what I've learned from them is that I need to be very efficient with my time that I spend on before you can spend all your time working and like you're not really, there's no trade-off. Now it's like, no, I need to be very efficient with the time I spend working because I want to spend as much time as I can with my family. So that's the difference. It's like, I don't waste as much time. Now it's more about like, how can I be the most productive as possible with the limited amount of time that I'm spending on work?
It really makes me smile because I started Thelander when Blake, my son, was 6 months old, and Morgan, my daughter, was 2.5. And it's funny because I had an advisor who is still a very close friend. And she said, Jody, I started in July. I know this because it was on my mom's birthday, July 13th in 1997. And she said, I will take you to dinner once every 2 weeks and we'll talk business and I will pay until you are profitable. And in October, I was profitable.
Right.
I was motivated, I was, hungry, and I was focused, and I was also really good with my time and that's how I started the data company is I needed a product so that I could be with my kids and also go ahead and, make money. And I think when you're busy and you have kids and you also have that holistic approach about family and balance and you're motivated as a young company with young kids, I actually think you are under the best of circumstances to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. It's not easy, but I agree with that. It's a tug of war of like time, right? Where am I spending more time?
Right. Well, time is our most valuable resource, and it's one that does not have a currency on it. But if you did have a currency on it, it would be very, very high. But obviously, where it goes in different areas is really, it's up to us to be selective on that piece of it.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. We like to end our conversations really with what is next for you, what you're looking forward to, what you're seeing the market. Obviously, you're in San Francisco or the Bay Area, so the how much conversation is coming out of any online publication about San Francisco being the hub for AI companies and billboards all across the freeway. How are you feeling about the startup scene there and what is next for Get Dynasty?
I personally think we're in an AI bubble. I think AI is going to like massive and it's just going to, but like the early .com bubble, like I think there's a lot of inflated companies out there that don't have very good metrics. Maybe they raised on hype or they have very fast revenue growth, but they also have very high churn and churn. Nobody's looking at the churn yet. Some of these companies, like I just signed up for a new AI tool today and then I cancel tomorrow. It's like they're not a lot of stickiness to a lot of these products. Um, and so I think that there's a bubble and I think there's going to be a correction with a lot of these valuations. You'll see some of these companies, we'll see what happens. But overall, I think AI is like taking over so much,
Taking over so much of the capital as well.
taking over all the capital, taking a lot of jobs, a lot of employees, a lot of family members I have that are unemployed right now. And A lot of their functions have been replaced by AI. So I think that's going to be more and more and more and more. Even engineers, who would have ever thought that AI would be doing all the coding now? And that's what's happening. There's a lot of these companies out there that, they don't want engineers writing code anymore. They want all the AI writing codes. The engineers just review the code now. Who would have thought that would be one of the first jobs replaced, is the software
If you would
engineers?
have asked somebody 5 years ago, software engineers were making an arm and a leg. Highly desirable jobs, because it was really one of those things where it was no matter what type of company you were working for, there was always going to be a need for a software engineer, and that is not the case today, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. So it's pretty interesting to see. As far as where we're headed, Dynasty, we're going to start offering, we're going to open up the product a little bit and not only work with startup founders, we're going to start creating trust for general partners at venture capital firms, limited partners, like startup executives. So we want to expand into the same ecosystem that we've already been in and worked within Carta on. But we want to just kind of expand our offering a little bit. That's what Dynasty is going next. As far as where startups are going, I think there's a bubble. We'll see what happens.
How are you feeling about San Francisco? I mean, you talk about the dot-com days, right? Because I lived through that, and I also that's how I got into more of the data, because I worked for all these dot-coms, and then the dot-com bubble burst, and I answered a job on monster.com for a comp consultant for a company called Fluidigm. I know I tell this story on a regular basis, but yeah, they're now public and they needed someone to do compensation. So I basically went in as a consultant, and the investors wanted a separate set of private company data for life sciences, because the tech bubble had really fueled up so much tech data, but not every private company was only tech. There was a fair amount of biotech and medical device. So that's where I started. And it really showed, though, that that was a long game business. And now it is for sure, and we've seen some of these tech areas, go boom and bust. But it used to be very Bay Area focused. And now, as Morgan and I have traveled the globe and do a lot in the UK and also throughout the country, we see there are pockets all over. And we look at the Bay Area as still important, but not the pinnacle. So, what's your perspective on that being there?
I think California is not, we're not doing ourselves any favors by talking about wealth taxes and this and that. And I think that I think I saw that the number of people that are leaving California has accelerated to, like, I think more people are leaving California than any other state now. I think I saw
No, they're
something,
not
some
going.
stat.
They're not going to be going to New York either, because that's
That's right. That's the same issue. It's the
everyone's
same
going to come
issue.
see me in Miami. Well, I'm happy to.
Florida has been growing. Yeah. Texas grew and then it like contracted. But yeah, I mean, it's happening. Like, I think there's people are not happy with the taxes and what they're getting for, from the taxes that they pay.
Well, it goes
The
back
state,
exactly to what you're saying, right? You're trying to balance being a father and being a husband, because I can see your hand, so I can see a wedding ring. But for
yeah.
somebody who's listening to the audio piece of it, right? So you're balancing that part with running a company, and then to live in an expensive state like California or New York, you're like, what am I walking home with? And that's really so much about goes back to the importance of what you're doing. If you're going to spend the time away from your family, building a business, starting a company, you want to be able to walk away with something, and that's part of where the planning really comes in. So I get what you do through and through. I'm a firm believer in the value of the QSBS. I'm like, it's an absolute no-brainer. And if I was a startup CEO and founder, the first thing I would do would be to do my compensation, and then the second thing I would do would be to call you.
Yeah, my planning, absolutely, or go to GetDynasty. I think that's a perfect way to wind up, because this is really my favorite thing about us talking, is that it is all tied together, and that there is the human element and the reality. And you built a business based on a need that you were seeing that people were missing, and you've made it really a product and something that anybody can access who's a founder, no matter how busy they are. And there are a lot of VCs who are younger coming in who will have wealth creation, and LPs who are, with the secondaries, there's opportunity in many places, but you cannot forget that the planning is really important, because you don't get into this thinking, well, if there's a liquidity, you get into this thinking when there's a liquidity. And so with that, you got to keep your house in order in every single front.
That's right.
Great. Well, Al, it was a pleasure to have you. Hopefully, we're going to see you next week. We're going to be there in San Francisco for the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, which might be a really good market for you to go and do some schmoozing around so we can offer up a couple of cocktail parties or bring you with us so that you can
Perfect.
first access to your audience. I can think of a couple where it would be great to have you. So we'll connect afterwards. And I hope you get a good night's sleep tonight.
Awesome. Appreciate it.